Hello, welcome to this episode of Thai Food. Today I'm going to make for you chicken marsala. Now I'm going to do kind of two recipes in one here. I'm going to do the rice recipe for the chicken marsala, and I'm going to do the chicken marsala itself as well. For the marsala, I just buy a Holland House Marsala cooking wine. A lot of the experts claim not to buy anything you wouldn't drink, but since I don't drink wine, it really doesn't much matter to me. So I just buy this little tiny bottle, usually around $3-4 I think, something like that. It's 13 ounces of wine. You won't even need the whole bottle. You can make a couple recipes with it. But first thing is first, I want to get started with the rice. So we're going to go ahead and make sure everything's clean. And we're going to start with our rice here. I've got a blend of rice in here just because I had some other rice that I mixed in with this. But pretty much for any rice, I would recommend getting a Jasmine rice. I personally like the Jasmine rice myself, but whatever your favorite rice is, you can do. And all I have here is a Aroma rice cooker, and I'm using the measuring cup that came with it. And the little measuring cup that comes with it, according to the directions, it's equal to about 3/4 of a cup. So we're going to do 3 of those in there. I could do up to 4 in this, but I think 3 is plenty for this recipe. And I'm going to make a little room here and stick this back here. So inside my little cooker, you can kind of see the etching here that's stamped in it. It tells me the water level and whatnot, and I usually get it. I base my water level off of this here. You know, 1 cup of rice gets 1 cup of water. You know, 1 scoop of, or 2 scoops of rice gets 2, 3 scoops gets 3. So we want to get the level up to this. Now, it doesn't have to just be water. I tend to do flavored rice a lot, and I mean a lot. I never, hardly ever do plain rice. So what we want to get in here, I've got 1/2 cup of a chicken stock here. Now, this isn't a regular chicken stock, as you can tell. This one happened to be infused with some rosemary and some wine in there as well. But pretty much you can use anything. You know, I got a regular chicken stock here. I usually keep this stuff on hand. Another thing I keep on hand is this here. It's a chicken base. You just measure this out. It tells you on the back 1 tablespoon is good for 1/4 water. So you can kind of guesstimate from there. You know, if you take a quart, divide it into 3, then you can take, you know, your tablespoon and divide it into 3 teaspoons, and you'll know how much a teaspoon will do. I'm not going to try to do that off the top of my head, but I've got 1/2 cup of the cooking liquid, and I'm going to add 1/2 cup of Marsala wine to that, because I want to have some Marsala wine flavor in the rice as well. So there we go. 1/2 cup of the Marsala cooking wine. And because I'm going to be cooking with chicken, I got my poultry seasoning. Boy, does that smell good to me. And I'm going to do 2 1/2 teaspoons, which is a full teaspoon of this. There we are. And we want to get this mixed into that. Grab a little whisk here. Now you want to make sure, and I've tried it with preheating the liquid. It's a bad idea. It's a really bad idea, because then the rice cooker kicks off prematurely on you and your rice won't be fully cooked. I've made that mistake more than once. Couldn't figure out what I was doing until I finally put cold liquid in there again, and lo and behold, the rice come out fully cooked when it kicked off. Wonder why. So learn from my mistake. Use cold liquid. And we want to get some roasted garlic in here. Yes, my handy dandy roasted garlic that I keep on hand here. And I'm going to go with a full tablespoon here. Rice will take a lot of flavor before you even notice it. I found that out as well. So We're doing a full tablespoon of the roasted garlic here. Want to get that mixed in. And we're going to go right in with the flavoring. And you may almost think that's enough flavoring, but believe me, it's not. You'll barely notice this flavor in the rice. It'll be in the background for the most part. And that's not a bad thing. We don't want to overpower the flavor of our chicken. We just want to help it. Okay, so I'm at just under 2 for my cups of liquid here. So I got some regular water here I'm going to add in. And it's not quite enough, so let me grab some more here real quick. I just got a little spigot here with a filter connected to it and run the city water through filtration. There we go, and we're up to the 3 mark. Make sure this is all flavored up. We're going to go right in with this. And at this point, you want to plug into the rice cooker, because if you plug it in beforehand, it starts heating up. And you don't want to burn up your element by heating it up prematurely. And then there's a button to push for cook. And voila, the rice is going. I'm going to set this chicken broth off to the side because I'm not going to use it at this point. Alright, next thing's next. We need to get our chicken going. I'm going to turn my skillet on here. I'm going to preheat it to 325. While that's preheating, I'm going to get right about a 3/4 of a tablespoon of butter here. And get that ready to go in there. And I've also got some of my roasted garlic olive oil that I set aside from when I made my roasted garlic. And that's going to go in there as well. Set the butter off to the side here. Alright, here's our chicken. As you can see, we buy chicken in bulk and vacuum seal it. So, I'm going to get this cut open here, grab some scissors. Now, definitely don't need all this chicken for this recipe. So I'm going to have some chicken left over, which is not a big deal, because these are rather large breasts, as you can see. I'm going to pull 2 out. I think 2 ought to be plenty. Set this off to the side. Rinse my hand. Probably should wash it. Can't be too careful when it comes to chicken. Got a couple motorcycles going by too. Well, make that about 5 now. Alrighty. Now I can touch my knife. So, at this point, I want to just trim any fat scraps off, set them off to the side, and I'm going to cut this into strips. Just like so. This way here we can lay it out. Usually you would do it a little differently, but I'm not going to take the time to try to pound this stuff flat. So I'm just going to do it quick and simple way here. And just cut it into strips and then season it. If you got a good sharp knife, it makes this process easy. As you can see, I got my good sharp knife. Well, one of the 2. I may not even need this second breast, looking at all this chicken, but you can never have too much chicken, can you? Especially when it comes to this recipe. This is definitely a family favorite, and we haven't had it in a while, so got a little bit of chicken fat here I want to trim off. Cats will like it. Not so good in the recipe. And we want to kind of get the chicken laid out so I can season it here. plop this breast into here at the moment so I can work. And get it kind of laid out, you know, because I'm going to season it and flour it right here on the cutting board. If you wanted to, you know, use another bowl to season it, you know, or season the flour to dredge it, you know, totally your choice. I'm just going to do it like this. Save some dishes, save a step. I mean, it's not going to hurt nothing anyways. And there we are. So my non-chicken hand, I'm going to grab the poultry seasoning that I've got. Just a light sprinkle on this. You don't want to over season the chicken, but you want it to have a little bit of flavor in this. And really, we're going to make a gravy with the Marsala wine. So when we make that, it's going to flavor the chicken really good as well. Got some flour here and limited space. Just want to sprinkle some flour on the chicken. And what this is going to do is it's going to help come off the chicken, and it's going to build a really good crust on the chicken. So go ahead and flip all these over so that I can season the other side. Once I get these seasoned, we're going to go into the skillet with them here. There we go. Set that there. Sounds like my skillet just kicked off. You can really season the chicken as much or as little as you want. It's really your preference. You can see I'm going a little heavier on this side than I did the other side, and that's just because I can, more than likely. Okay, so I'm going to take and get my butter in. And what I have here is that olive oil I was telling you about, that's from the roasted garlic. I'm going to drizzle a little bit of that in. That's supposed to help keep the butter from browning on me, which it already has, but it's also going to infuse some good roasted garlic flavor into this. Get this mixed around. I can definitely smell the roasted garlic in this now. Alright. And just start going into the skillet with the chicken off the cutting board here with the flour on it. Bump that up just a little bit. You want to get a good sear on this, because like I said, it's going to help build a crust and it's going to give it flavor. And if anybody says they don't like flavor in food, they're crazy. Might as well just eat cardboard, because that's about what you got when you don't have flavor. And see, I got flour sticking to my fingers here. Sprinkle a little more flour on this. Sticking to my cutting board, but that's alright. Chicken breast tends to have a lot of water in it too, so doing it this way, it helps bring the moisture out in it as well. You don't want it to totally dry up on you, but it's going to add flavor to the party here. I think there was a scrap of fat I cut off. I don't want to put that in there. Alright, so at this point, got a little bit of seasoning here, and I know I'm going to put that other breast on here at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dust that with some seasoning. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to plop my chicken breast right in it. Because why not, you know? It'll add to it. I'm going to start slicing this one up to get it ready. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably pause the video here because we're getting lengthy and I don't want to take too long with it. But I'm going to pause it and finish getting this in here and getting it all browned, and when I'm ready to pull the last little bit out, we'll come back to it. So take a break, would you? Alright, welcome back from our brief pause. So I'm just getting that other chicken breast cooked off here. As you can see, I got the first stuff right here, and just about ready to pull this out. And then we're going to start the gravy portion of this, which basically means I'm going to start putting some onions and mushrooms in here to get them cooked down to go in the gravy with the chicken. Don't like mushrooms? You don't have to use them. You can opt out for the mushrooms. But usually when you make when I've had it, it always had mushrooms in there. But, you know, it's all preference. If you don't like the mushrooms, you don't have to put them in there. I have friends that don't care for mushrooms, and that's perfectly fine. I also know people who don't like onions. You can leave the onions out. If you use the onion powder, it'll give you some onion flavor without onions actually being in there. If it's the onion flavor you don't like, well, I guess you just don't use it. That's all there is to it. But you can see I'm setting the chicken off to the side like this, and that's because we're going to go back in to the skillet after. So if it's not totally cooked, no problem. You don't really want it to be because you don't want to overcook your chicken breast. You can see I got one here that doesn't have a whole lot of color on it. No big deal. Not going to hurt nothing. Flavor is still there, trust me. So I'm going to set this down off to the side now when I go to this next portion here. And I had to top off with a little bit of oil and butter in between the two fries. And that's mainly because the flour on the chicken, it will absorb the oils a little bit. So we're going to do another about 3/4 of a tablespoon here of butter. Make sure we get the paper out of there. And before that burns, a little bit of roasted garlic olive oil. However much makes you happy. That's all I can say, because I did not just measure that. I poured until I was satisfied. And we're going to go in with the onions here. We want to get these onions cooking. Now the onions really will cook a little bit longer than your mushrooms will. And that's, you know, just the way it is. So we want to get these onions sauteing in this. And we're probably going to have to add more fat to this because we're going to add flour in here as well to make our roux for our gravy. So when we add our liquid, it'll thicken up. And it'll thicken up even more when you add the chicken in there as well. So we want to get the onions going. And I need to grab a little salt grinder here. I have plenty of these on hand everywhere. This one's just smoked sea salt by McCormick's. You can use whatever you want. Put a little bit on there. At most, like maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's all you really need. It's just enough to draw some of that moisture out of the onions so that you can get them to caramelize for you. We want to get these going. And to keep the video shorter, I'm going to take another brief pause here. Okay, so that was about a 30-second pause just to get the onions to where I wanted. And at this point, I'm adding in the mushrooms. And as what I have here is I had a half a package of already sliced white mushrooms, and the package size was about 8 ounces. So we got 4 ounces of those sliced white mushrooms. And then I had mini crimneys that I had, well, actually my wife sliced them for me in preparation for this video. And that was a 10-ounce package, so I went with half of that package at 5 ounces. And we're just going to get these sauteing here. And I'll come back to you when we got it where we want it. Okay, so I went ahead and put the lid on this. What I'm trying to do is create a sauna effect and draw some of that moisture out of those mushrooms and get some of the juice out of them. And that's going to add to the flavor here. And we're going to go ahead and pull this off here. And you can see they're starting to wilt down for me. Just set that right there because I'm probably going to need that lid again. And we're definitely getting juices out here, which is what we want. We want to get the juices out so we can get this sauteed down and get the flavor into it. When your rice gets to the point where it was steaming, I forgot to mention this before the last pause, take the little spoon that comes with the rice cooker, if that's what you're doing, and you want to stir it once. And then close the lid. Stir it as quick as possible without making a mess, and then close the lid and let it go. That's about the only maintenance you have to do with the rice in the rice cooker. Once it's cooked, it kicks off, goes to a warm setting, and it'll keep the rice warm until you're ready for it. It's been a great cooker. It really hasn't burned the rice at all, except for when I was using the warm liquid. So, like I said, don't use the warm liquid. Just put cold in there or room temperature, and you'll be alright. It'll do what it's designed to do. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I thought I'd be helping it out, get it done a little quicker. That didn't help. The other thing I tried doing was I kicked it on, put the butter in there, you know, like you would start your rice-a-roni and saute it in the butter and whatnot, and then kick-start it that way, and that didn't work out so well for me either. So, you just want to kind of keep it the way it is. Alright, so at this point, what would one of my recipes be without some black gold? I don't want a whole lot in here. 1/4 teaspoon sounds good to me. Put a splash of that in there. You can see I keep it handy right there on the counter. Get this mixed in. We got lots of flavor going on here at this point. Between the onions and the mushrooms and soon to be the chicken Marsala wine. Okay, so at this point I'm looking at having a 30-minute video, but that's okay. We're covering a lot of ground here. So now I've got that chicken stock that I used. I've only got 3 ounces of it in this one. The container was running out, so I just decided to use what I had left. So I'm going to use a little bit of this in there with it. I'm going to go with a 1/2 teaspoon, because if I go with too much of this, it'll get salty on me, and I definitely don't want salty. So 1/2 teaspoon of that, and got to get the roasted garlic here. About a 1/2 tablespoon of this. Get that in there. Try to get it all in there. Good enough. And Marsala wine, of course. So we're at about a 1/2 cup here. So we're going to add a 1/2 cup of Marsala wine. There we are. And I'll probably come back for a little bit more in a little bit here. Get this mixed up with the roasted garlic. Okay, there's that. And I'm going to sprinkle some of my poultry seasoning in just to help fortify that flavor there. It's going to be about a 1/2 teaspoon. Again, we don't want to go crazy with the flavor, but we want the flavor to be there. There we go. Got a nice sear on some of this without burning it while it was sitting here waiting for me. I got some charred bits right here where the heating element is in this, and that's okay, because that's all going to come up in just a little bit here when I pour in the liquid. Now before I do that, of course, I'm going to add just a smidget more of roasted garlic oil. Not the lid though, the lid's not edible. Just about that much. That's probably 1/2 to 3/4 of a teaspoon. And what we want to do is put that off to the side so I can clean it. And we want to get about 2 tablespoons of flour. So I got a measuring spoon that's exactly 2 tablespoons. And if it's a little heaping, that's alright. We want to get that in there. Now we want to mix this around. We're making a roux at this point. So we want to coat the flour and everything, you know, to try to cook the flavor out of it. Or, yeah, you want to cook the flour taste out of it is what you really want to do. Not so much the flavor. At this point, I don't think I could cook this enough to get the flavor out of it unless I burn it. And that flour is soaking up that oil. And also the juices and whatnot that were left in here from the mushrooms and such. Get this mixed in and ready to go. And we're going to go in with 1 cup of liquid here. And I know we're going to need another 1/4 cup of the wine. So I'm going to add another 1/4 cup to this. So that's going to be a total of 3/4 of a cup of the cooking wine. And I've pretty much used the whole bottle at this point, but that's because I infused it in the rice. Because I want to make sure I had, you know, a good background of flavor here. And now I need to add some water in here. However much you feel is necessary. We're gonna get a good gravy going at this point. And it helps cool it down so it doesn't take control on you too quickly. Alright, now at this point, I'm going to go back in with the chicken. Remember, we said we were going to cook this some more. So, got this right where I want it. I'm going to turn it down to a simmer. And prepare to add my chicken breasts. As I throw one on the floor. Don't worry, it's not going to waste. I'm going to rinse that off and it's going back in here. Because there's going to be enough heat in there to kill any bacteria. And the floor is clean enough, you could eat off it really. But I know for a fact that'll kill the bacteria. Alright, at this point, I want to stir my chicken in. I'm going to set that off to the side because I can use that container when we go to take care of the leftovers here. And if you want to cook this so you don't have leftovers, 1 large chicken breast like I had, or 2 small ones. I did 2 large chicken breasts. And we're going to go ahead and let this simmer for a little bit here. So we're going to take a brief pause again. I'm going to get the lid on it and let this simmer and finish cooking. I'll come back in a little bit. Okay, so we still got this simmering. At this point, I've got some sour cream here. And this wasn't originally in the recipe when we did it, but my wife was eating hers with sour cream one day, and I tried it, and I said, you know, that'd be good right in the sauce, mixed right in. And so next time I made this, I did it, and we liked it. So that's what we're going to do. Going to go right into the sauce with the sour cream. Going to do about half a cup of it here. You can pretty much see the level of it. We're just going to do one more little dab there, and that's pretty good. Doesn't have to be totally accurate. Again, you can also opt to leave it out. Your choice, but this is how I make it, so this is how I'm making it. So, bump the heat up a little bit here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just plop this right in here. We're going to mix this around in here. And this will mix right into the gravy sauce of sorts. Might even thicken it a little bit if you got yours a bit too loose. Or we've discussed before, you can just take some flour, mix it with a little bit of oil, and put it right in, and it'll be all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this in here. I bumped my heat up a little bit to get it simmering again, so bump it back down here. Now I got it simmering. And you just want to mix this through. Try to get it thoroughly incorporated as much as possible here. And however long you let this simmer after this, or up until this point, it all depends on how well your chicken was cooked. If you just gave it a quick sear because you had a really hot pan and then continued on, well, then you're going to need to let it simmer longer to get it thoroughly cooked, because you don't want to have any uncooked chicken. But I didn't have mine thoroughly high, so I had it searing pretty good. But at this point, I've got it so it's table ready, and my rice should be pretty much done. It's still sitting there waiting for me. So I'm going to try to get this mixed in, and we're going to plate it up. I'll be back shortly. We're going to take another brief pause. Alright, final take. I got a bowl here. We're going to dish up some of our rice. Before I do that though, I want to unplug this, because after this we're going straight to the dinner table with this. So get that unplugged. Oh yeah, rice is cooked. It's a little clumpy too, but that's alright. Make it a little more viewable for you. You can see it's light, fluffy, cooked to perfection, really, in my mind. There we are. So we got our rice in. I want to stir this a little bit. You can see from the flavoring I put in it, there's a little bit of brown on the bottom of the rice. That's no big deal, ain't gonna hurt nothing. It's just flavor there, as far as I'm concerned. Get it mixed up a little bit there. You can see it's still steaming away pretty good here. Alrighty, let's grab ourselves some chicken here. And if you wanted more gravy with your chicken, well, you could have made more. I could have too, but I just want enough to coat it and lend a little bit to the chicken. And you can see it's nice and thick enough I can pull gravy out with a spatula, so got a nice thick coating to it. But there we go, that looks like enough for me. Now let's see how we did. And yes, I'm going to eat this with a spoon because the chicken is that tender and you got the rice in there, and I just prefer to eat my rice with a spoon. Excellent. Just the right amount of salinity to it. The Marsala wine comes through. The mushrooms have a good chew to them. They're not mushy. I'm happy with it. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you make it and how you like it. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the little bell icon to get notified when I upload a new video. And check out my Facebook group, Thai Food. Twitter is Thai Food, and Instagram's Thai Food on YouTube. Have a good one.